How do you succeed one of the greatest cars ever made? Well, you make the P1. The car, which alongside the Porsche 918 and the Ferrari LaFerrari revolutionized the supercar space and created the path for high-performance hybrid cars like the Artura 296 GTB in today's market. So first, a little bit of history behind the McLaren P1. So a bit of history behind the P1. In 1993, McLaren debuted the McLaren F1, their first road-going car with a 6.7-litre BMW-sourced V12 that at the time became the world's fastest road car. Many consider the F1 to be the best car ever created, and with values well over the $30 million mark in Australian dollars, very few will ever be able to own one. However, the McLaren F1 was made under McLaren Cars, not McLaren Automotive that we know today. So when we fast forward to 2010, and McLaren Automotive is made as a road car division to the racing team, they launched their first ever road car. For the McLaren Automotive, that is. The MPC 412C. Their philosophy was simple: high-tech, lightweight, and fast. After the 12C, McLaren wanted to make a car which defined the road car philosophy of high-tech, lightweight, and stupidly fast, and also combined with their racing history within modes like Formula 1 to create a car to follow upon the legendary McLaren F1 and push the limits of supercar technology. The car would be built under the codename P12. The car would not only have to live up to the McLaren F1, but also show to the world that McLaren Automotive can outdo brands like Ferrari, who at the time were gearing up to launch the successor to the Enzo, and Porsche were looking on the follow-up to the Carrera GT. So, with this in mind, what car did McLaren make? In 2012, at the Paris Motor Show, McLaren pulled back the covers to reveal the P1. The production car would be revealed at the 2013 Geneva Motor Show. The P1 was nothing like anything we had seen before. The swooping shapes of the headlights, inspired by the speed mark of the McLaren logo, the aggressive yet smooth lines which followed through the car, with the nostrils and the front bonnet showing its intense aero, the butterfly doors with the glass on the roof sandwiching the roof scoop, then towards the back, the speed-marked taillights with the active wing. The car, famously designed by Frank Stephenson, who has designed automotive legends like the Mini Cooper, the X5, the F430, and the MC12, just to name a few. The car housed a 3.8-litre twin-turbocharged V8 alongside an electric motor, mounted into the engine's output shaft, mated to a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission developed by Graziano, driving the rear wheels. The car produced a mammoth 903 horsepower and 900 Nm at the time. You gotta remember, this is the time when the supercar had just reached 600 horsepower, and the cars above it in terms of power figures were mainly the Veyrons and the Koenigseggs. Not only that, but the weight of the P1 was 1395 dry, with the top speed claimed at 217 miles per hour and the 0-60 in 2.8 seconds. The car's electric motors also meant that the power came instantly. The P1 was built with an all-carbon fiber monocoque chassis, which weighed only 90 kilograms. The interior is full of unlacquered carbon, as it is. To save 1.5 kilograms, there is tinted glass on the roof, letting in a lot of light, which is also all lightweight glass to keep the weight down to a minimum. The bucket seats are not as insane looking as the center seats, but still look quite cool, with the different cutouts within the seat. The Alcantara steering wheel has the McLaren logo in the middle, DRS and I-Pace on either side, and the Formula 1 inspired DRS technology reduces the wing's angle to 0 degrees, which actually results in 23% reduction of drag. The I-Pace system provides an electrical surge of power as a boost for acceleration. With all the histories and the stat figures out of the way, let's talk more about the P1's influence and its legacy. In a Top Gear episode, Jeremy Clarkson famously referred to the P1 as the Widowmaker. Why? Well, because it was so damn fast in a straight line and in corners, but also not only was the P1 rear-wheel drive, with all that power the electric motor kicks in and sends out the rear wheels. Basically wanted to kill you. That's why cars like the 930 Turbo back in the 80s was given the name Widowmaker. Even the modern equivalents of the 997 GT2 RS were given a similar nickname due to their high-intensity driving experience which wanted to kill you. Videos of P1 such as Chris Harris sending it sideways around Yas Marina and Jeremy Clarkson's Top Gear film in Spa, as well as Evo magazine's review of the P1 at Yas Marina, became famous all around the world, not only because of this insane looking spaceship of a car, but also for the fact that it was so easily driftable but yet so quick, created quite a buzz in the automotive space. Now, let's talk about the P1's legacy and how it's fared since its review over 10 years ago. After the P1 came out, McLaren thought, why don't we take the already insane McLaren P1 and make it even more insane? Hence came the McLaren P1 GTR, a track-only version of the P1, which took the P1 up to 11, with completely new aggressive aero and a huge wing alongside the same 4-litre V8 engine. However, now it's unrestricted, but still retaining the electric motors, producing a combined 986 horsepower. The GTR wasn't made to race, it wasn't a race series, it was just a track weapon for customers to buy, and 58 of them were made and were only offered to P1 customers, and around half of them ended up going to Lanzante to get road converted. The GTR showed to the world what McLaren was capable of in terms of out-and-out track performance, and at around $3.5 million a pop, they weren't cheap. Now, the values of the GTRs are still in that $3.5 to $3.8 million figure, but what about the normal P1's values? Well, they range from $1.2 to $2.2 million, however it does depend on condition, mileage and spec of the car, like most other cars. For a long time, the P1s had actually lost value, and still to this day, if you account for inflation, most of the P1s are actually worth less than they were new. If you compare this to the other Holy Trinity members, the 918 Spider has recently seen a huge spike in prices after an auction done a few years ago, with values well over the $2 million range. And the LaFerrari is now easily a $4 million car, with the Apertas at over $6 million. And if you think about it, the P1 is actually the rarest of the three, at only 375 made, plus the 58 GTRs. Compare this to the 918 Spiders and the 499 LAF Coupes, plus the 208 LAF Apertas, and I can't remember off the top of my head, maybe 40 or 30 FX6s? So why did the P1 end up going down in value? Well, I think this was down to a few reasons. One being the reputation of the P1. With it being called the Widowmaker, many people felt overwhelmed being behind the wheel of the P1. The second reason being the brand McLaren itself. The P1 is at a hypercar level, which makes it the most collectible level of modern automobile. And most of the new price increases around these modern hypercars is due to collectors who want to collect cars for either having a collection of, for example, of all the Ferrari hypercars, or to have a safe place to put their money. Now, both of these are influenced by brand legacy. Look at Ferrari, a company that started all the way back in 1947 and has made countless iconic cars which people flock to collect. Same with Porsche, with one of the most incredible fan bases and a serious amount of collectors around the world who want to buy these cars. It makes cars like the 918 and the LAF more desirable, as there's just a bigger market for them. This is all due to the legacy that they carry, with the LAF succeeding the likes of the Enzo, F50, F40 and 288 GTO, and the 918 Spider succeeding the Carrera GT and the 959. You may say the P1 is a success to the F1, and yes it is, but the problem is that the F1 and the P1 are very differently priced at the moment, and also there are only 106 McLaren F1s made in all different derivatives. Also, third part, McLaren as an automotive brand, in terms of reputation, itself hasn't always been the best with reliability, and in the early days, servicing was an issue. And as long as the brand's been around, they've always had some sort of financial issue. The P1 itself in the past few years has had problems with the battery, so much so that McLaren had to make a brand new battery, which owners need to buy, at a cost of $156,000. This means that as a collectible piece for collectors, the P1 isn't as desirable compared to the other hypercars in the Holy Trinity, or even cars like the Veyron, which are currently seeing a huge surge in values. And moving on from the values of the P1s, what about the legacy that it carries? Well, for many people my age, in their teens, it is their poster car. Just like for me, looking back with a flurry of the new hypercars in the market, none quite compared to the P1. Because the P1 had everything right. It had looks, it had performance, it had presence, it had rarity. It has that hypercar factor. You feel like you're in a hypercar, not quite a supercar. And it has a following behind it. Many owners who own a P1 or have owned a P1 hail it as one of their favorite cars. And many journalists still talk about the P1 and how incredible it is to this day. Now, I personally think the world is opening more and more to the P1 as time goes by and new hypercars come out. And all these new hypercars are so similar to each other that they're losing their original prowess that a hypercar carried only about 5 to 10 years ago. And that brings me to the next part, The W1. The follow-up to the P1 and the F1, revealed 11 years after the P1, the W1 has some huge shoes to fill. Now I'm probably going to do a whole video of the W1 down the line, but here's what you need to know. It has 1250 horsepower from a twin turbocharged V8 with electrical assistance, the most powerful McLaren road car with a wing that extends in length, and only 399 will be made. The W1 has been met with quite a mixed reaction. Many did not like the look of the W1. For me, I can see resemblances from other road cars, and I don't think it looks as beautiful as the P1, but I do think it has a certain aggressive presence that still makes it look good and hypercar-like, but not P1 level. The one thing I do feel about the W1 is that if you look at the one cars, both the previous cars were revolutionary, whereas this is an evolution of what already exists. Let me explain. The F1 was the ultimate road car. It showed the world what was possible with making the three-seater layout popular and being the ultimate driving car. It took everything that brands had learned over the time the motor vehicle was made and took it to 11. The P1 was a revolution in technology, showing just what can be done with the highest level of technology at the time. Whereas the W1 takes parts from other McLarens and combines it, but doesn't necessarily distinguish itself, like even cars like the Senna did and the Speedtail. I kind of feel like this is a bish-bash of different McLaren models kind of put together. It doesn't stand out, it doesn't have its own purpose. Yes, the wing is cool, but I wouldn't say it revolutionizes the whole car. I guess time will tell how W1 actually is, and as media and customer drive still haven't happened, there's still some time towards that. The future of the P1 looks bright, with McLaren, just at the time of doing this video, actually sealing both driver and constructors championships in Formula 1. Many people might be interested in collecting McLarens. They are now starting to build a legacy to both automotive and racing. Well, they always had racing, but now it's even more. This may help P1 owners, as the values of the P1s might go up and become more desirable. With values aside, to me the P1 is one of the greatest modern cars ever made, and my personal dream car. One in blue carbon with silver wheels, silver calipers, and white and a dark blue interior is the dream. Even 12 years after its reveal, the P1 is still important to this day.